What's going on, my friends? I hope you're very well. Today we're going to do something really cool. Something, that I'm going to try to do. I know, I know it's always do or do not. There is no try. But there's a very particular situation with this tree where I'm going to try and repot it. And there's a particular situation with its little pot. And as you can see, it's a very little pot, you know. The thing you gotta understand is that where I live, bonsai pots are non-existent, you know. What you can find for growing plants are the typical pot that it's absolutely no use for bonsai because it's very tall or it doesn't have good drainage, you know. Or if you do find one, it's normally a very, very low temperature fired clay, and they're very fragile and they're not good. Anyway, so you have to buy them online, and I found this one. And when I read the description, I was only looking at the length of it. So the length is okay, and the picture was like this. So I only looked at the picture, and I didn't look at the diameter. You know, so it's an oval shaped pot. So I don't know if it's going to be enough. Looking at online pictures of root over rock projects, I realized that most of them are super shallow, and I don't know, we'll see what happens, right? So what we're gonna pot today, or try to pot today, is this little guy. You saw it in my previous video where I was working on the edible fig root over rock project. Yeah, and I told you that it was in need of pruning. So because it's in need of pruning, I'm gonna make use of that, and I'm gonna transplant it today. And because we're gonna get rid of a bunch of roots, we're gonna do some pruning to it. Yeah, and that's gonna be hopefully okay, and it's gonna be safe for the tree. Yeah, so I'm gonna place the camera and we can start working on the roots. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is remove this little guy from its pot or container. This is not a pot anymore. When has it been, right? It's a little container that... Actually, there is a video where I transplanted this little guy from a bigger pot, like a nursery pot, to this container. And the thing that was different from the older pot it was in to this one is all of the drainage holes, and this is a much shallower pot than the one it was in. So the last time I said that whenever you're transplanting root over rock project, you have to grab the little tree by the rock so you don't run the risk of the little guy coming loose. So we're going to start working on the roots, you know. We're going to remove soil, and I think we can use our fingers for the roots that are down here. Yeah. So we're going to try and remove roots that are very thick, roots that are starting to become bulbous in the lower section of the plant. Yeah, and we're only going to leave, you know, those feeder roots, those little fine white tipped feeder roots that are going to keep the tree alive. Yeah, so we can see that the turfis and zeolite that this little guy was planted in is not degraded to the point where it's no longer safe or good for the health of the tree. So that's good. That means that our substrate, our bonsai soil, is working. Yeah. That's not much of a problem with little ficuses, you know, because as you see in nature, and as I've said before in my videos, they can take a beating, man. You know, if you leave them on a little crack on the ground, or maybe it's growing next to your house. If you leave it unchecked, you don't prune or you don't remove it completely, that thing can do some severe structural damage to your house, you know. So you gotta be careful with little ficuses that grow wild. Yeah. So it goes to show that life finds a way. And that's the second movie quote that I've said or used in this video. Can you guess what movies they are? And as usual, the ice cream truck is lurking around. I don't know why, but it seems like whenever I have a very important video call or whenever I'm shooting a video, the little kid from across the street calls the ice cream man, you know. But anyway, I guess I can understand that. Everybody needs ice cream. I'm actually going to pause the video because literally he's coming over. Okay, so hold on for a second. Okay, I think he's gone now. I think we're in the clear. And I'm still removing the soil. Yeah. And we can see that we definitely got some of those roots that are going to remove, you know, that we're going to remove. All of those roots are very thick, that are absolutely going to be a problem on the new little pot. Stress on the little. So we continue to remove the soil. Yeah. So the last time that we figuratively saw each other in the last video, I was telling you about how if you wanted to start on bonsai and growing your own, a very nice species to start with would be ficus, right? Ficus bonsai tree. And that remains true because, like I said, they're very vigorous. But on a side note, it might be a very good idea to start working with trees that grow naturally or in the wild where you live, you know? So for example, if you live in Canada, a ficus might not be the best candidate for, you know, starting on your bonsai journey. So maybe a pine, yeah, if you live in Canada. So grow what grows around you. Yeah, start working with little trees that grow around you. And where I live in Mexico, this happens to be ficuses, you know. I have grown pines and maples and whatnot, but that's just because I've been doing bonsai for a little longer. You know, if in the future you start to get the hang of it and you start to realize that bonsai is something that you want to do further down the road, you know, further down the line for a long time, well, maybe try different species, you know, try the ones that you like, because that's very entertaining. Yeah. It's a very, very entertaining and very fulfilling little hobby. I shouldn't say hobby because this is an art form. You know, Japanese teachers will tell you that, and I agree with them. But you know what I mean. Sometimes it's a hobby. Sometimes it's your whole life. So we go ahead and remove those roots, yeah, the ones that are growing downwards, or the ones that are very thick. Yeah. Just remove them. So, for example, this one, you see how it's growing downwards and it's very thick. So we definitely remove this. And we got several of those here at the base of the trunk, which means that the roots have completely, how can I say that? Engulfed, surrounded Covered. Let's just go with covered. The rock. Yeah. And so that's very good. But if you want to fit this little guy in your incredibly shallow new bonsai pot, that's going to be a problem. So normally when you transplant a little tree or a big tree that's been growing in a container, normally what you do is that you transplant first to a pot that is more shallow, that it's maybe a nice quality growing pot. Still a bonsai pot, but it's a pot where the tree can still grow. You can still cultivate it so that it grows. So what I mean is that you transplant to one of those and gradually you decrease the volume of the pot, you know. Look here, we got this little stump that is going to be a little difficult to cut. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do that. I'm going to bring my wire cutters. Maybe I can use them to get rid of that. So I was saying that, yeah, it's a gradual process whenever you're transplanting, you know. But in this case, we know that this little tree has got tons of little feeder roots and that it's been growing in a container like this for quite some time now, in a shallow container. And so that's why we're trying to do this, right? And you know, if it doesn't work, if we can see that the tree's health is starting to decline, maybe we can just, well, not maybe, we just transplant it back to a bigger pot, and that's it, right? That's all there is to it. Look, the stone. See that? You see how there's still one of those little plastic knots that I use from back when I transplanted, back from when I first set it in the stone. That's really cool. We can see the time and all the things that we did back then, you know, starting to be helpful today. Okay, well, let's see. We need to cut a little bit more. Definitely, a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna pause the video because I'm gonna bring my wire cutters and then we can continue. Okay. Okay, so we're back. I got my wire cutters over here. As you can see, we removed that bit stump that was there. Yeah, so we continue to remove some soil. And whenever we're transplanting, especially if it's going to take a long time, what we can do is, you know, spray the roots a little bit so that they don't dry out completely. This is a messy procedure, but, you know, if you clean up afterwards, I'm sure your wife or your girlfriend or your mom, your family will understand. In fact, if you get them involved, this will be even better, right? Yeah. So I think we're getting there, you know, we're getting to the amount of roots that we can safely remove, and that's going to allow us to place the little guy in the little pot. Well, let's see. Again, I'm going to pause the video because there's a car coming that's trying to sell something, so sorry. Okay, let's get on with it. Let's continue. I think the ice cream truck is still lurking about. Oh no, here it comes again. Sorry you guys, but I'm just gonna let it be, you know. Probably gonna go chase it after we're done. You know, it's super hot around here. sorry. If you're using your headphones, this is a treat. Oh no. Well, life happens. Okay, I think we're done now. Let's see if we can fit this in the pot. Okay, so we got a bit more. So you see that I'm shaping it with my scissors. Yeah, and I'm trying to shape it so we have the same contour of the little pot. Yeah, it's an oval shape. Let's see if it fits now. Okay, there we go. Yes, nice. You know, that fits. So what I'm gonna do, this is not gonna be the actual height that it sits, you know, the actual height of the tree in the pot, because it's gonna, we gotta account for the soil that we're gonna put as a bottom layer, you know. This is not going to be the height at where it sits, you know. Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit of soil in the bottom. As you can see, I placed a little bit of a little cutoff of netting, so we don't get the soil all over the place. So it's the final steps, you know. I'm gonna try and mix some of the old soil because, as we saw, it wasn't very degraded. You know, it was still holding its shape. So with the new one, and I'm using a mixture, my regular mixture of zeolite and worm castings. As you can see, we got lots of organic matter over there. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so there we go. Standard procedure, right? We put a little mound in the middle, and then we place our little tree, and we push to the sides. Yeah. I think we can cut a little bit more around the edges. That way we'll be able to fit a bit more soil in there, you know. Yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and do that. Especially around the sides like this, you know? Yeah. Definitely can. Okay. Okay. So we can see that we got this little hollow place there. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a little bit more soil on the bottom of the pot, so it covers, or so it enters that place, that hollow, sort of like a little indentation in the root mass. Yeah. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll place it here. So a little bit more old roots. A little bit more soil here. That indentation was. And now I think we can place it. You know. So there we go. Okay. I'm gonna use this little container, a little makeshift. There we go. See that? Nice. There's a little stand so we can see better, and we can add more soil more comfortably, right? So I'm gonna turn this around Sorry about the sound, but you can see that there we have that little cave that formed when we place it. So that's where we can use our hands and maybe a little chopstick. To fill it in. So the front of the tree, what do you guys think? I'm thinking about this, this being the front of the tree. Of course, we got tons of roots that are crossing each other, one that's moving in the wrong direction, But look, trees in nature, they grow like that. Especially ficuses. It might be a good idea to show you some of the ficuses that we can find here where I live, and you'll see that they grow all over the place. The roots, they're crazy. They can break walls. They can break sidewalks. So I'm thinking that is a nice looking front, especially because we have that scar from a cut that I made a couple of months ago. Months or a couple of years. This little guy is 2 years old. From scratch to finish, it's about 2 years old. This was originally a cutting. But now we can call it a little pre-bonsai. Yeah. But technically, bonsai means growing in a pot, and this is definitely a pot. It's not a plastic container anymore, but there's still some work that we can do on the tree. We can ramify it. We can do a little bit of wiring on the top. And that's the thing about bonsai, isn't it? It's a work of art, but that it's always changing, that it's always evolving. And the really good thing about bonsai is that if you're working with a tree that is naturally long-lived, it can last forever. It will outlive you. It will outlive your children and your children's children. So that sense of permanence is really, really cool. So the other day I was reading that one of the main themes in the Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien's masterpiece, is to cheat death, immortality, and what happens when you try to get immortality and power by the wrong means, the ring, that evil ring. So anyway, I'm telling you about this because if you read those books, trees and plants, they are very heavily featured, It's like a very common theme in Tolkien and how he values trees and their longevity and how we're supposed to take care of them. Treebeard, the protector of the forests, big part of its dialogue says, well, they're destroying everything, I used to be able to travel everywhere in the woods, but now I'm confined to this little section of of the forest where I live. Yeah. So definitely something to think about. Yeah. The other day I was also watching a video about this Japanese bonsai master, and she's a lady. I think the video mentioned that she was one of the only female senseis, in Japan. And she said that you can't have a garden, you can't grow things without a sense of spirituality. And that resonated with what I was thinking about Tolkien's works, plants and natural world and all of that. Okay, so transplanting done, sorted. Yeah. So what are we going to do next? Next, we're gonna move over to the top. So I'm going to remove these leaves that have matured already but that are definitely new, in the hopes that we're going to give the tree the chance to recover, to have less roots, and also to encourage ramification. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and, take a look at the little branch, where it's going. Yeah. And I'm just going to come in and clip, So if I want lateral movements, I'm gonna make sure that I get that I prune where I'm gonna get that. There we go. So I think I'm going to place the phone down. I'm going to position it so I can do this operation with both hands. Yeah, so hold on. So that's a weird angle, but you witness most of the action. So big leaves are growing in between branches and are shading out other branches that we want to ramify. We can go ahead and remove those. Old leaves are damaged or they're growing downwards, those we can remove as well. And this is a very generic operation. We're not looking to we're not looking at being extremely careful. We're just removing the growth that has hardened and that we can get rid of to ramify in this growing season. Yeah. We can take cuttings from this, like I've mentioned before. That's a nice idea if you want to start your own little production. Yeah. Grows sideways, so that's where we cut. You see this little leaf? I think you see it. So this is growing in the inside of the foliage, growing downwards, so that's what we remove. Okay, we're getting there. And another thing, we don't want this tree to grow much taller now, because like I mentioned when I first transplanted this, or in one of those videos where I first pruned this or I shipped it, we don't want to let it grow too much, because if we do, the composition, like the how do you say that? The proportions, yeah, the proportions of the tree would look kind of funny, you know, because you will end up with a huge tall tree with a little stone growing underneath it. So we don't want that. We want proportion that is nice to look at. Yeah, that's beautiful. We want beautiful things, right? I'm also removing branches that are going directly upwards, directly downwards. Remove those. Yeah. Let's see. We can remove this little shoot over here. I'm gonna leave that. This little guy is growing downwards. Let's see. We're getting there. This has got to be one of the longest videos I've done. But you know, it's because of the occasion, right? Not every day you transplant one of the little trees that you've been growing into its semi-definite pot. Yeah. I think I can remove this one because it's growing inwards and upwards. Oh. So another thing that we got to be careful is where you place this. Yeah. You want to place it in a spot where it's not going to be, you know, disturbed by the wind. It's not going to be knocked over, because remember, those new roots are going to start to grow. So location, location, location. Yeah. So let's go to a place where we can water this, and we'll pretty much call it a day. Okay. Oh, let's go ahead and do that. So here I go. So obviously I'm watering with this little spray bottle, because if I were to water with I don't know, with a watering cane or just a pot filled with water, the little soil on the sides will be all over the place. Yeah. So we watered thoroughly, and by now we should be able to see that the drainage holes are working. Now we can see the water running down. That's a good sign, because that means good drainage. Yeah. You can also water the top, so that latex that comes from our pruning operation can run down as well. You know, see, I think we got a little crack here that we can fill with soil. So it's 100% filled. There we go. That's it. Let's lift this. Let's take a look. All right. So we made it. We managed to transplant it, this little guy, to its tiny pot. Looking good. little drainage holes. Maybe I'm gonna have to water it a little bit more. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for this little guy. Thank you for watching the video. The last thing, look, the guy who sold me the pot, another one that I'm going to use in the future, also sold me this little Montezuma cypress. It's very similar to a bald cypress that you have in the States, and it loves water, so yeah, that's something that we're going to be working with in the future. And I'm also preparing a video where I show you how I root my little fig trees. So here we have one of the ones that I've already rooted. Yeah, and the very curious thing about this is that, look, when I took this cutting, it came with a bud that would later become a little fig. You know, how cool is that? Very cool. Okay guys, so that's pretty much it for this long video. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoy it. I'm gonna keep you posted on this little guy, its development, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, have a very good day. Bye bye.